Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
This week I chose the movie. I picked a film that it was just a franchise that we've been meaning to get to that we haven't even touched yet. This is 1993's Leprechaun. This movie, right? This movie is interesting. I first saw this movie in high school. So 1993, I was a sophomore in high school, and I remember renting it from the video store. It was either that year, it might have been the following year. We rented it from the video store, and we had it at one of those sleepover parties. It was a mix of people, guys and girls, and there was a girl I was kind of interested in. So I remember not paying too much attention to the movie, and if you know what I mean, possibly even falling asleep in the middle of it, to be honest. And so my recollection of this movie is just in fits and starts, but I do remember that it was a bit of a cultural touchstone at the time, because Wayne's World would always reference it, right? Wouldn't Wayne tease Garth by saying I'm the leprechaun, I'm going to come get you. I
had forgotten about that.
This next movie was great, albeit obscure. It came out during the spring. It's called The Leprechaun. And
the Leprechaun, cool. I thought it was excellent.
Oh, yeah, it was really excellent. It was about this little mythical elfin creature with a really wicked toad. Do you remember that guy? Do you remember?
Oh.
I'm the leprechaun.
Whoa!
Don't try and steal me, pot of gold.
Stop it! You're scaring me, Leprechaun man!
Garth, come on.
But I saw the Leprechaun man.
It's me. Garth.
I saw the Leprechaun.
Just chill, it's
all
me,
right.
all right? Pixie dust, all right? Pixie dust. I mean...
But I thought you were...
I know, you thought I was the leprechaun. Okay, Garth, it's me.
That's funny.
So, I think it kind of lived on more for that. But then it spawned a number of sequels. There was a Leprechaun II, a Leprechaun III, Leprechaun in the Hood, Leprechaun Back to the Hood, Leprechaun in Space, and I've actually seen Leprechaun in Space. So,
I don't know that I have. You talk about it incessantly, but I don't think that I've seen it.
I do, because we need to do a theme month of in-space movies, because there's a Leprechaun in space, there's Critters in space, there's Jason goes to space at some point, right? Isn't that Jason X?
Yep.
Yeah. We're totally going to do that one of these days. But anyway, we can't do the Leprechaun franchise without hitting the very first one. So that's my background on the movie. How about you, Craig?
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember. Same, I guess. I was in high school, too, and I know I didn't see it in the theater, but I definitely saw it. I've seen it a bunch of times, I'm sure, but it had been a really long time. But they do play it on cable quite a bit, and
sure.
Ironically, yesterday, when I needed to watch this for the show, I was flipping through the channels, and it was on. And not only was it on, but it was right at the very beginning. And I was like, well, isn't that convenient?
Way. Are you kidding
yeah.
me?
And it was a marathon. I think they only went up through 3 on some cable channel like Comet or something. I don't know. But
do tell me you just kept going.
No, I didn't. But I have. I mean, this isn't the first time that I've seen them do that marathon, and I have watched some of them. And 2 isn't particularly memorable. The lead protagonists are a young couple, and I don't know. It's all about their love and blah blah blah. I feel like the leprechaun wants to marry the female or whatever, and then the third one takes place in Vegas and is actually kind of fun, is pretty funny. And those are the only ones I remember. I don't think I saw any of the In the Hoods or Space. And then after those, there was a big lull, and then they did a reboot without Warwick Davis, with a professional wrestler. I hope I'm not getting this wrong. I honestly don't remember, but I feel like the guy's name is Hornswoggle or something like that. But he's a professional wrestler, and they tried to they wanted to take it back to real straightforward horror and get away from the comedy. And I watched, I think, the first 5 or 10 minutes of that, and it was so bad I turned it off. I don't even think I ever even saw the Leprechaun. And then fairly recently, I don't remember if it was Sci-Fi, somebody went back to the original franchise. Now, they didn't get Warwick Davis back, and I don't remember why, but they went back with his look and went kind of back to the comedy, and or at least one of the characters, Ozzie from this movie, was in that most recent one, and it referenced the events of the first movie, and I haven't seen it. I mean, I'd be willing to watch it, but I haven't seen it. But yeah, I mean, this movie, as cornball and goofy as it is, did spawn, kind of a cult franchise. So, there's something to be said for that. Frankly, going back, I have fond memories of this movie. And going back and watching it, I'm a little curious as to why.
You're revising. Isn't that sad when that happens, right? It happens to us a lot on this show.
Yeah. I mean, there are some cute and charming things about it. I mean, my favorite thing about the movie is Warwick Davis. I like Warwick Davis. He's a cool guy. I think he's a good actor. He's done some really good stuff. He was the lead in Willow, which I haven't seen in years, but I just remember being a great fantasy movie. Yeah. And he was in the Harry Potter films. He's done lots. He was kind of a he and Billy Barty were kind of the go-to little people for acting roles for a long time. And this is one of the things that he's most famous for, and really Warwick Davis is really responsible for what this movie is, because it was conceived as a straightforward horror film, and Warwick Davis saw his character as being more of a comedic character, and the writer-director Mark Jones, he liked what Davis was doing with it, and so he went along with this major tonal shift where it really became more of a comedy, and it is funny in a really
funny a lot too.
Well, in a really goofy, obvious kind of way.
Yeah.
Watching it this time, what struck me the most was that it feels like it's meant to be a kids movie.
Yes. That is exactly what I was thinking. I mean, this is along the lines of like Troll and like The Gate and these other kids movies. It really feels like that because like the level of humor and the way it's done, and it's quite tame in many ways. Apparently they had to go back in and reshoot to up the gore, right?
Exactly, right.
But even with that, it's not gore. It's not really that gory.
No.
The gore effects are just blood on a face, they're not really gross, right? They're not like what we normally see with these movies, especially at this time period, right?
Right. So it's a lot of sight gags. I was talking to my partner last night. I'm like, okay, so here's the movie. The leprechaun is on a tricycle. The leprechaun is in a little car. The leprechaun is on a skateboard. The leprechaun is on roller skates. The leprechaun is in a wheelchair.
Oh, God. You were right. They hit all the major forms of transportation except for like a plane and a helicopter. Basically, that's it.
It was kind of hilarious just that it kept happening. Every scene was a gag. I mean, at one point the leprechaun is on the roller skates and he goes through a fence and leaves a leprechaun shaped hole in the fence.
Yes.
It's so silly. But
it's a leprechaun.
Right. And I get the feeling that they knew what they were doing, that's what they were going for. They were going for sight gags. They were going for goofy, and if that's what they were going for, they certainly got it. I mean, it's not scary. I mean, I don't know what Garth was so afraid of.
God, no.
Because it's not scary at all.
Not. And it's kind of a mess, too. It didn't get a lot of critical love. The director, the writer-director Mark Jones, comes from TV writing, mostly writing cartoons. Like from the late 70s to the early to mid 80s, he was doing a ton of Hanna-Barbera stuff. And, Hanna-Barbera cartoons, there are like 1,000 of them, right? Series.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Mr. Magoo, and then their all-new Super Friends Hour, Captain Caveman, Laugh Olympics,
Yogi Bear.
Yeah, all that stuff. And he was writing for this stuff and did a little bit, did a couple episodes of The Fall Guy. But this was really like his attempt to break out and do direct an actual feature film. And so he wrote and directed this. And you can see that pedigree in the goofiness. Now, yeah, I mean, I read the same thing that you did, that Warwick Davis came in and said, look, we can make this character more comical. But I'm sure that he, coming from this background, either already had some of that in there already, or at least was very well suited to be able to do this kind of silly, kind of kids type humor. Like you said.
Yeah.
It's just goofy.
Well, and I think that was the right way to go because...
Oh, for sure.
I think that, a straightforward horror movie about a leprechaun you can't get away from that being stupid. I mean, it's going to be stupid. In fact, immediately after this, Mark Jones did another movie, Rumpelstiltskin. I saw it and it was awful, but I think that it was more straightforward horror, but it was just dumb, like a little person in a costume running around baring his teeth, looking stupid. And it's been probably, 20 or more years ago since I've seen that, but I just remember it being terrible. So I think that taking the comedic spin on it was the right way to go.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think that this movie would have made any impact at all, and I think that it would have faded into obscurity, and we would not be talking about it had it not starred Jennifer Aniston and her original nose.
Yeah. I love her original nose. I didn't see anything wrong with her. It was a joy to see in this film.
I'm speculating. It just looks a little different to me. But no, I mean, it's an unknown Jennifer Aniston. This was right before Friends came out. Like right before. Like the year before.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as Friends came out, then Jennifer Aniston was a household name. She was a huge superstar. And this little stupid movie that she did amazingly well on VHS because of her name recognition.
I'm sure it's why we rented it. I'm sure it was.
Oh, probably. I don't know. I rented everything. But yeah, she's in this. She's embarrassed by it. I understand why she might be,
for a couple reasons.
Yeah, Warwick Davis at one point kind of publicly called her out for denying the existence of this movie, and she responded. And she acknowledged that this was her first film success, but she's just embarrassed by her roots, by her early work. And she had done some other stuff too. There was a Ferris Bueller's Day Off TV pilot that she did. She played Ferris's sister. There was another, right before she got Friends, she was in another lame sitcom that the producers of Friends were able to get her out of her contract for that so that they could get her on Friends. Another interesting connection is that Jennifer Aniston comes from an acting family. Here it comes. Jennifer Aniston's dad, John Aniston, is a longtime veteran of, drumroll please.
Oh, which soap opera?
Days of Our Lives.
There we go. I knew that was coming. I didn't know, but I knew by your build-up that we were coming to yet another soap opera connection. That really, this is the only reason why I keep you on this show, Craig, is so you can make these soap opera connections.
I'm like the Days of Our Lives consultant on this show.
You have the knowledge that I don't have to really fill out all the complete picture.
John Aniston has been on Days of Our Lives for probably 40 years and still is, periodically at least. I don't watch it. I haven't watched it in years, but periodically he's still on. He plays Victor Kiriakis, and sometimes hero, sometimes villain. But I think, if I remember correctly, that Jen Aniston and her dad had a very strained relationship. I don't think that he was very much present in her life. So I don't think that she really got much help from him in the industry. I think that in their adult lives that they've kind of reconciled, but I know that there was a lot of tension between them when she was a girl. But anyway, here she is, and she's, she's embarrassed by it. I can understand why, but really, she shouldn't be. It's a bad movie. There's nothing more really that she could have done with it. Is she good in it? No.
No. But what you're saying is like the material she had to work with, right? I mean, the writing for such an experienced writer is kind of shockingly bad.
Yeah, it's bad. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is the reason that she shouldn't be embarrassed by it is because so many huge name actors got their start in crappy horror movies.
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey, Renee Zellweger, Meg Ryan, Viggo Mortensen, Brad Pitt. The list just goes on and on and on. And so, what's there to be ashamed of? You got work. It put you out there.
Loosen up, Jen. Come on. Calm down. You got to. The producers didn't even want her on this movie. It was it was Mark Jones who had to push and push and push to get her on there. And again, really wise choice because, as you said, that is probably the only reason why this thing did so well on the rental circuit is because of her presence in there. There are other recognizable characters in here.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Alex, the little kid, Robert High Gorman, he's not a name that you probably rattles off your tongue, but he was one of these go-to little kids, right, on TV and in movies at this time. He was in Forever Young just before this, which was a movie we used to watch a lot. Rookie of the Year. He
was in one of the greatest movies of the 1990s, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh, God, yeah.
That is a classic as far as I'm concerned.
I like that one.
Totally recognizable.
And the guy in here who plays Ozzie, again, not a dude that, anybody could probably recall their name so quickly, but Mark Holton is just a character actor in pretty much everything. He was at Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He was the bratty, snotty, grown man-child. He's hilarious in that movie. And he's pretty funny in this movie, too. Again, this movie is dated. This character would never fall today. No. I think that the safest thing that we can say to describe him is that he's a simpleton. But it's certainly implied that he's in some way mentally handicapped. And though he's a lovable character, everything these days is just so PC, and you have to be so very careful about, representation, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, and I don't even want to get into a big discussion about cancel culture because I have mixed feelings about it, and I feel like no matter what I say, I'm going to piss somebody off. But it was a different time, and his character is lovable. Ozzie, that guy, and the kid Alex are kind of this cute little duo, and they're fun in the movie.
And then we have the hunky dude, Ken Olant. And he was one of the guys in April Fool's Day, which is another favorite of ours. Was on quite a bit of TV. I don't know if I didn't really recognize him too much, except for his role in April Fool's Day. But
familiar.
He's a nice looking dude. Yeah, it looked familiar. And the father, he's barely a presence in the movie, but his name is I think John Sanderford, and he was in Firestarter. Actually, a lot of television. I feel like. What is it that I used to see him in? I guess you never... Days of Our Lives?
Not that I'm aware of, but it wouldn't surprise me.
He was Crawford Decker in Days of Our Lives.
See? I'm telling you.
Right? We should start a spin-off podcast.
I've said it a million times. I'd have to start watching the show again. I don't know if I can commit that much. But yeah, I mean... It's a very, very simple movie.
It's about 15 minutes too long, in my opinion.
Oh my God.
It got really old.
It was
an
an hour and a half long, and I swear I was checking the timestamp every 10 minutes.
Yes.
It was way, way, way too long. It would have been a really funny 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But, it just went on and on and on, and it was just like, even though it was different gags every time, it really wasn't. It was really just the same gags over and over again.
The same type of gags, right? Ooh, the goofy leprechaun is, dancing on a skateboard away from them. I mean, it's the first 20 minutes is way too long, and that's bad. I don't think the movie kicks off with a huge bang.
Well, I felt like that was the only part that was a little bit scary.
The first part, the very, very first scene. I mean, in the opening, there's a leprechaun who comes down some stairs that seem like they're underground or something, and he's counting his gold and talking about his gold. And he does a little nursery rhyme type thing. He speaks in rhyme every now and then and sings these songs, which is kind of cute.
Try as they will, and try as they might, who steals me gold won't live through the night.
But then we get a guy who swings up in a limo to an old country townhouse, and his name is O'Grady.
Yeah. Daniel O'Grady.
Strong Irish accent, tosses a bottle of Jameson. His wife is like, "Oh, Daniel O'Grady, what are you up to this time?" Just kind of over the top Irish, and you're thinking, "Oh, okay, so this starts out in Ireland." No, it's like somewhere.
He's just come back. We're not in L.A. I know that.
We're in North Dakota for this because the dad makes a comment about it earlier.
Right, and he comes, but he's come back from Ireland. Yes. He was going to his mother's funeral. But he comes home rich and drunk, and it turns out he tells his wife that he caught a leprechaun and he got his gold, and he shows the bag of gold, and he's gonna go hide it or whatever. But there's a storm a-brewing, and while he's out hiding the gold, the wife hears a child crying and then singing from his suitcase. And so the kid's like, "I can't breathe in here. Please let me out." And
well, that's pretty good, Craig.
So
it seems like you've done this before.
I'm a voice actor on the side. I don't, if you didn't know that.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm not really. But the leprechaun pops out of this suitcase and pushes the wife down the stairs, and she's dead. And then he comes back and chases the leprechaun around with a gun, and the leprechaun's taunting him and speaking in his wife's voice and acting very cocky until this guy pulls out a 4-leaf clover, and then the leprechaun's like, "Oh no, put that away!" Ah!
It's a real 4-leaf clover. It's so silly, right? Because he's holding this tiny little 4-leaf clover in one hand and a big gun in the other hand. But this is just between his thumb and forefinger as he holds this out. It's like a really comical version of Van Helsing advancing on Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's it exactly. It's like a cross to a vampire. He's scared of it or whatever. And he gets the leprechaun into a crate, and he's going to burn it. I think he's going to burn the house down, but I thought he died of a heart attack, but we find out later that he had a stroke before he could burn it. And then we shoot to 10 years later with this aerial shot of this car driving through what I imagine probably was California. It looked like California to me. And there's a kooky 4-leaf clover song playing in the background.
Yeah.
Kind of so stupid.
Some very labored dialogue between Jennifer Aniston's character Tori and her dad. And it's just basically setting this point. And part of the problem with this movie was I think there were setups without payoffs here, or themes that I thought they were trying to establish early in the movie that didn't actually go anywhere. One of these things is that, her dad's hauling her out to this middle of the nowhere backwoods place, to this cabin that he's gotten for them for some, I don't know if it was ever explained why.
No.
She's this Beverly Hills, kind of prissy priss girl who's supposedly very concerned about money and all of that.
I'm going to be miserable here. There's no swimming pool, there's no shopping malls, there's no cable. But you don't even have a TV. Oh, this sure ain't Beverly Hills.
There, a little bit later, there's a line where he actually says to her, there are more important things in life than money. And she's kind of like, oh, really? Well, what would that be? She tries to pay a guy off later. And I thought, oh, okay, so, the leprechaun, the gold thing, somehow she's going to have some character arc where, it's going to have something to do with her love of money, and she's going to realize that leads to issues and problems,
Oh, no.
I thought maybe she would get the gold, something like that. Nothing like that at all.
No.
That's just kind of completely dropped.
She's just a very flat Beverly Hills princess type character, and I imagine she didn't have to dig too far.
Too deep for that. Probably not.
Well, she wears LA Gear sneakers and oh
it's
my
so
god,
cutely dated.
Oh, and her these denim shorts with patterned fabric sewn into it, and a bodysuit that I guarantee you snapped at the crotch. It's so early 90s. I mean, it's funny she has a portable phone, and that's what she calls it. Hold on, I'll use my portable. Which at the time, I mean, come on, she had a little flip phone there. I'm surprised she had a signal out there. I didn't know we had such cell coverage in 1993, honestly. We probably didn't.
They go out to this shack, which was the old Grady's place, except it's all grown over, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, kind of at the foot of some mountains or something. And they spend an awful lot of time in the basement. It's like they go into the house, the first place they go is the basement. And this basement's probably the size of my living room, but they spend a lot of time looking around. And God, that was when I first started looking at my watch. I was like, God, just get out of the basement already. Mm-hmm. They're having their whole conversation there, and she's like, oh, grody, oh, look at this, oh, a spider, ooh, this, ooh,
and
that.
It's a tarantula. That always cracks me up in stupid horror movies where there are just tarantulas crawling around, and they're like, ooh, a spider.
Yeah,
I'd be freaked out if I saw a tarantula in my house too. Man,
how often does that happen though in real life?
Not
where do you have to go
here. I don't know.
To get
Australia, that's where all the big scary things are. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, the dialogue is just, it's just terrible all around, and she keeps talking about how she's you could, if you took a shot every time she said she was going to get a reservation at a hotel, you would be dead by the end of the movie.
That's right.
So she runs out of the house because she's going to go to a hotel, but then she bumps into the hot guy. And the hot guy is Nathan. He's the head of this painting crew called Three Guys Who Paint. And it's him and Alex, the kid, a child, and Ozzie, the simpleton. And how these boys' men are related to one another is never explained. I guess they just all live together and paint houses in the most garish colors you can imagine.
That's right, bright blue and red.
It looks so stupid. And it's a terrible, terrible paint job. And they're just throughout the first 45 minutes of the movie, they're just painting this one 3x3 spot on the house in these ugly, bold, it looks like tempura paint. It looks just awful.
I thought for a minute I was watching Cool as Ice. That was how the houses are all painted in that movie. And it's they switched from blue to paint a little bit of red on the shutters, but didn't finish painting the shutter and just went back to painting blue again on the wall. They spend hours out there. Then they need to go get more paint, apparently.
Yes.
At some point.
And Jen Aniston, because there's a hot guy now, she is going to stay, and she wants to stay, and she's flirting with him and helping. And at some point, there's a stupid gag where we don't even see how it happens, but Ozzie gets paint dumped all over his head, so he has to go inside to get cleaned up. And he goes downstairs, and the leprechaun tricks him using the kid's voice into getting him out of the crate. And he gets out of the crate And then Ozzie runs upstairs like, there's a leprechaun down there. In the 30 seconds that he's been gone, Jen Aniston has managed to get paint all over her arms. Like, what? Did nobody tell you how to paint? Like,
Exactly. By the way, she's not wearing an apron or anything with her fancy, expensive clothes here. Good thing she only managed to get it on her arm. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
And so then, of course, they think, just simple Ozzie. But they go down there to, check it out or whatever, and they uncover a rat or something, and so they write it off.
And all of this at this point is playing like a Disney movie of the week.
Yeah.
This is where I was like, oh, God, this is totally like a kid's movie, is what I was thinking at this point. But I remembered it being gory, so I was holding out for the gore.
Well, and the leprechaun says, like, when he's talking to Ozzie, Ozzie's like, what are you? And he's like, see me hat and the buckles on me shoes? I'm a leprechaun. Like, just the stupidest. Oh, my God.
And then comes a part that I still don't understand. So they go down. They haven't found the leprechaun. Oh, I found your leprechaun. It's a mouse. Then they come out of the house, and as soon as they get out of the house, a rainbow paints across the sky.
In the middle of a perfectly clear day. And yes, I didn't remember that at all. It is like the reading rainbow. Like,
yes.
It just shoots across the sky.
And they look up at it, and they're like, oh, it's a rainbow. And here, there's a lot of this, like, unbelievable, just complete disconnect, holes in the movie and the plot, and things I just don't understand. Why Ozzie suddenly is like, hey, you know what they say is at the end of a rainbow, a pot of gold. Maybe we can go get the pot of gold. And he goes tearing off, and Alex goes tearing off after him to look for the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Which they immediately find.
Which they do, because the rainbow literally like comes right down onto a broken down truck. And the gold materializes in front of us inside this truck. So they look inside the truck, they find a little gold piece, and then as they're looking, a bag materializes. So what is the deal? Did the leprechaun make the gold appear? It can't be.
No, because he doesn't know where it is. Right.
So O'Grady hid the gold, but he didn't hide it in the old truck, did he? Or if he did,
he must
why
have.
Why wasn't it just there?
Why
did it materialize? And why did this rainbow suddenly come up right after the leprechaun was taken out of the crate?
Because this is a children's movie. I mean, it feels so much like a children's movie. Like, not, so that they follow to the end of the rainbow and then the rainbow disappears. But then as they're, like, walking by the truck, the little gold piece in the truck, like, sparkles and there's, like, a twinkle sound effect. Like, just to, like, oh, there's the gold piece in there. It feels like it was made for children.
Yes.
For, like, grade school children. It's crazy. Well, Alex is all excited. They're gonna, if it's real, they're rich, but they can't tell any of the grown-ups, because grown-ups, how grown-ups are, especially with money, they'll just take it. So he tells Ozzie that he can keep the one piece that they found, but he's gonna keep the sack. And they're like, is it real? And Ozzie's like, oh, well, I know how to tell if it's real. You just bite it. And then the camera cuts away from him, and then it cuts back, and he's choking. He swallowed it.
And then Alex says the weirdest thing. He says,
we can get you an operation.
For what?
To make you smart. See, we can go to the hospital and have them operate and fix your brain.
But I'm smart.
Yeah, well, sort of. See, what I mean is we can make you real smart. That way people won't make fun of you.
They make fun of me?
Not in front of you, only behind your back. Come on, let's go to the well.
Like, you're so mean. Like, this guy was oblivious to the fact that people were talking about him behind his back, and you're just going to tell him? Like,
for no reason. Like, what was the point? He didn't have to convince him of anything in particular at this moment, right? He was just getting him excited about having gold or something. And also the soundtrack follows through with this sort of Disney feel. And And I felt like, oh, this slightly sad, poignant moment where this guy, for the first time ever, realizes that maybe he's not quote unquote normal like everybody else and is affected by it. And I thought that was going to go somewhere, but it didn't. They just have this moment and then they scamper off. And that's really the last we hear about it until much later, when the boy admits that he told Ozzie that they would fix his brain. And Tori says, there's no operation that can change Ozzie. And he says, yeah, but he doesn't know that. What? What? You had no need to first tell this guy there's something wrong with him, and then tell him, but we can fix it. To what end? It was so weird.
I mean, the whole character of Ozzie
was problematic.
And I would be interested to see the newest movie because Ozzie's in it, and I would be interested to see if he still plays it the same way. I imagine that he does. But it's not, you can't say that, oh, he is this, or oh, he has this. Like, he's just childlike. Like, he's playing it like he's a grown man, but he acts like a little kid. Yeah. I don't know. It's awkward. It didn't bother me in the 90s. Frankly, it doesn't bother me now. But again,
it's too comical.
I feel like it just wouldn't fly today. Yeah. Anyway, the leprechaun strokes Tori's legs from under the truck, which is crazy. And like, she thinks it's Nathan. Like, so she thinks that Nathan crawled under the truck to stroke her legs? What?
I know, right? After he just walked by her, like, moments ago. And then Dad says, oh, it's just an old possum, honey. And then they all kind of turn and they hear a cat meow. And they're all facing off screen. But we never see a cat. We just see them facing off screen and a cat meowing a few more times. And they go, oh, it was a cat. It's just the weirdest editing choices, right?
Yeah.
Like, usually the cat meows, everybody turns, and then
Like
we get a shot of the
afford,
cat, and then, oh, it was just a cat.
a
But
cat?
here, everybody just stands there, and this freaking cat off-screen meows.
It's the leprechaun making a cat noise.
Yeah. Inside the stump of a tree.
Right, and the dad, like, reaches his whole arm down in there. Why? Like, just leave it alone. Like, do you need a cat right now? Like, and then the leprechaun bites him and he pulls his hand out, and I don't know what they thought was in there because it looked like a alligator bit his hand, or like
he did. It's like half his hand is this huge chunk out of it. Yeah, it's really.
So then they take him to the hospital, which gets him out of the way for the rest of the movie. But it also gets them in town so that Alex and Ozzie can take the coin to the coin store.
To Joe's Coins in the middle of the night. And Joe is more than happy to let them in, and he looks at it, and he's like, oh, these are interesting markings on here. Can I keep this overnight and study it?
Sure.
Okay. And then this is where, I kind of stopped paying attention to the movie. So they leave, Ozzie and Alex leave, and of course we know what's going to happen to Joe with his leprechaun coin. He locks up, but he hears noises, and he turns to open his safe to put the coin away. And when he opens the safe, out jumps the leprechaun. So this leprechaun can presumably just kind of be wherever he wants. He can materialize in locked safes. He can materialize next to people. Whatever. Yet he has to ride a tricycle all the way out behind the van to get to town.
Yeah.
And then he has to steal, once he kills Joe and gets his coin back.
With a pogo stick. And I imagine that this is one of the kills that they probably put in reshoots. They're like, we need more gore. So the leprechaun, he gets the guy down on the ground somehow, but then he goes over and gets a pogo stick and just pogo sticks on his chest whilst reciting this limerick.
This old lep, he played one, he played pogo on his lung. Teach you to steal me gold.
It's very silly and very stupid, and the gore effects are not good. I mean, it's just...
They're not good at all.
blood. I mean, I guess it kind of looks, it's the color of blood, I guess, but it kind of doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
it's just so
poorly
ridiculous.
Filmed. You can barely see anything. I mean, the idea of a guy pogo sticking someone to death is intriguing, and it would be kind of horrifying, but you can't even see it. All you see is kind of the end result, which is just a guy laying there with some blood on him.
Yeah. And from, like you said, I feel like this is what you were getting at. From this point, nothing really happens. Like, it's just the leprechaun running around. Like, he steals this little car from the coin store and then gets pulled over by a cop, and there's a big long scene of him like playing with the cop, playing hide and seek with the cop.
I mean, this is a huge diversion from his quest for gold. You know
right.
what I mean? He's not so single-minded that he can't spend 20 minutes running around and playing hide and seek with this cop in the woods.
So he kills him, he breaks his neck, but seriously, that scene went on forever. Oh. It feels like they're stretching for time. The plot is so simple that they have to throw in these scenes because they're trying to get to an hour and a half, and it feels like it's a little bit painful. The leprechaun goes back to the house and searches the house and finds a box of Lucky Clover cereal, which is obviously a Lucky Charms knockoff. Lucky Charms agreed to be featured in the movie, and then they saw the movie and pulled back out, which I don't blame them. But it's kind of funny. But what's the point? I mean, he finds the Lucky Charms, and then he eats it and spits it out. Stupid. And then shines all the shoes in the house. Like, he is compelled to shine shoes. Like, he has to. Like, if he sees shoes, he has to shine them.
That's important. Yeah, that'll pay off later.
The gang all they all come back, they find the mess, they find the shoes.
That's right. And they're just sort of like, oh, this is weird. You know, they're just willing to kind of throw their hands in the air and go, oh, well, whatever, at some of this stuff.
Well, it was probably a bear. The bears come down here every once in a while. Oh,
bears
no big deal then.
Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Bears will come into your house when you're not home.
It happens.
Place, right? And as far as the shoes go, who knows? But whatever. Bear likes shoes. So then the Nathan says, I'm going to go check out the bedrooms and find out where we're going to stay tonight. And I'm like,
what?
Did they all come out here? Did they have no plan?
The painters are going to stay at the house?
Right?
What?
Don't they have a home of their own? And then it just dawned on me, this house is still just chock full of cobwebs. Even though the dad had fully stocked the kitchen pantry, he couldn't at least dust off the very shelves he was putting the Lucky Charms cereal on. There were cobwebs over doors, the cabinet doors that they were all opening and closing. And I thought, my God, they spent a lot of time painting the outside of the house, but not even dusting off the table they were planning to eat at that night or making a bed that they were planning to sleep in.
And why are they even there?
Yes.
Is this their vacation in this shithole house? I don't get it. Nathan goes out to I don't know, they hear a noise or something. So he goes out and falls into a bear trap that apparently the leprechaun set. And then the leprechaun reveals himself and everybody sees him and he's attacking Nathan and everybody else is just standing around whacking him with stuff.
Hitting him.
Just whacking him.
Fun.
And Ozzie calls the cops, but obviously this also, Jenna Aniston, when she's not saying that she's going to be going to a hotel, she's ordering people around. She's constantly telling Ozzie and Alex what to do. She tells Ozzie to call the cops, but of course they don't believe him because, simple Ozzie's it's the attack, the leprechaun's attacking, send the army, send the...
Yeah.
Alex gets a shotgun, Nathan shoots the leprechaun, they think he's dead even though the body's not there, and then Tori gets the trap off Nathan, and she's like,
Nathan, that was no f***ing bear.
So I also felt like they were, they had to try to get the R rating.
Yeah.
Say
yeah.
fuck a couple times. We only need
Yeah,
2.
that's right.
We only need 2 for the R. Oh my God.
Well, the other thing is they are shooting this leprechaun a hell of a lot. The leprechaun gets shot by people, I don't know how many times, and it seems to work, but it really doesn't. But the leprechaun will just lay there, and then they just walk away from it for a little while and chatter. And then when they come back to look for the leprechaun, he's gone. And so at this point, I would be thinking, all right, well, obviously shooting the leprechaun doesn't do anything. But all they do for the rest of the movie is get chased by the leprechaun and chase the leprechaun with guns in their hands, continually trying to shoot it. And when they do end up shooting it and it's dead on the ground, they walk away from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it does immobilize him momentarily, but I think that the suggestion...
But they don't take advantage of that.
Not really. Eventually, they try to get in the car and go away, but the leprechauns sabotage the car, and the leprechaun attacks and bites Ozzie's ear.
But they keep trying to take this junky car with the wonky distributor cap. Why don't they take the frickin' Jeep?
That she has... Well, okay, so before that...
The camera pans across the Jeep on their way to the truck.
I know, it doesn't make any sense, and eventually they're like, oh, well, he just wants the gold, so we have to give him the gold, and Ozzie's like, oh, well, not Ozzie. Alex is like, well, I hid it in the well, so go out, pull up the bucket, it's in the bucket. So Tori goes out there and she pulls it up and it's in there, and the leprechaun apparates, right in front of her. And,
right next to her.
And she gives him the gold and he kisses her on the cheek and she runs inside and she's like, oh, well, it's over because he got the gold or whatever. But then the leprechaun counts the gold and one coin is missing, the one that Ozzie swallowed. So he's not satisfied. He attacks again and they're like, what do? We can't kill it. And somebody, one of the boys, is like, well, we should ask Mr. O'Grady. This was his house, and he used to always talk about leprechauns and stuff, so we should ask him. And they're like, well, where is he? In a rest home. So Tori jumps in the Jeep to go to the rest home and leaves the rest of them there. Why? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they all go, first of all? And secondly, the leprechaun follows and chases her. Why? She doesn't have the gold. It's Ozzie's got it. It makes no sense. And there's this whole stupid scene, it should have been cut. It's one of the many scenes that should have been cut, where she goes and creeps around this rest home for an hour.
The worst rest home in the USA, which has a sleeping security guard you can just walk right by, and is dead, silent, and completely dark all night long.
Well, and right in front of the sleeping guard, there's a tablet that says in huge letters on the front, room numbers. Like that, written in Sharpie. It's so dumb. She goes and she finds Mr. O'Grady's room and she talks to him, but surprise, it's not him, it's Leprechaun. Then the Leprechaun chases her around in a wheelchair, and it's just the goofiest looking thing.
And then he chases her onto an elevator. The elevator doors happen to shut just as she gets in there. And as she's going down in the elevator, suddenly O'Grady falls through the roof of the elevator.
And it's just hanging there, but is alive long enough to tell her that you need a 4-leaf clover. If you can get a 4-leaf clover and you can touch him with it, then you can kill him. And he's like, there's a clover patch back at the house. So she jumps in her Jeep and heads back to the house, and the stupid leprechaun follows her in the wheelchair.
He should have told her that there was a 4-leaf clover in the basement on top of that crate.
Well, it has to be freshly plucked. That's what he said.
It worked for 10 years on that crate, though.
I know. Don't ask me. I didn't write it.
I don't know why the leprechaun who teleported next to her, next to the well, hasn't just teleported back home. Why did he take that wheelchair all the way to the house?
Well, because that wouldn't be as funny. And we've skipped all of these things, but I already mentioned them. Seriously. Roller skates, skateboard, anything with wheels that you can imagine he's in at some point. And there's one point where he's like it's like, at carnivals, those old like shooting galleries where something will just go back and forth across. It's him on a skateboard, like he's standing up on it, then he's laying down on it, then he's like, I don't know, doing a headstand on it. Like, it's just the most ridiculous thing.
It sounds funnier than it is, especially by this point in the movie when you've seen enough of this shit. So
yes. So they get back and she goes to the glowing Clover field.
Yes.
It glows. She looks and looks, can't find it. The leprechaun chases her back inside. Eventually
they're back.
The three adult ones, Ozzie, Nathan, and her, end up back there. Meanwhile, Alex is trying to set a trap for the leprechaun or something. And then there's this whole stupid... Tori's like, we'll never find it. This is so stupid. We don't have time. And Ozzie's like, yes, you will. You will find it. You just have to believe.
And she's like, damn it, Ozzie. I'm tired of your talk about fairies and leprechauns and all of that. We don't have time for that now. And he's like, you lost your faith. You can do it. You just gotta believe. And so she closes her eyes and she just reaches into the clover patch.
Okay, fine. I believe. How's that? And lo and behold, she pulls up the 4-leaf clover. Like, where is this coming from? When did this become a movie about
faith?
Faith. Like, what?
So crazy.
So stupid. The leprechaun gets Alex and is attacking him, and the rest of them run in, and Ozzie's like, it's not him you want, it's me. I swallowed the coin. And so then the leprechaun starts chasing him, and he eventually gets him and starts slashing at him. I felt bad for this poor guy because, like, it's in his stomach. Quit slashing at his face, mean.
Yeah.
But the kid, Alex, takes the 4-leaf clover, puts it on a wad of gum, and pulls back his slingshot, gets the leprechaun's attention, says,
F*** you, Lucky Charms.
Which is the only good line in the whole movie. And he shoots it, and it goes right into the leprechaun's mouth, and then the leprechaun is in agony, and he, like, stumbles over to the well, and he melts, like, Gremlin style, like... Yeah. Spike at the end of Gremlins, except there's also like, I don't know, like green lightning and
lights,
stuff around him or whatever. He falls back into the well, and they're like, yay, it's over. But then he crawls back up and, I don't know, says something stupid. And Nathan pops him back down and dumps gasoline in there and lights it, and it explodes because that's how gasoline works. It'll look like a bomb, right? And then it's morning, and the cops are there, and the dad is there, and it's all over, and everything is fine. But the camera pans to the well so that the leprechaun can say some rhyme about how he'll be back. And he is. Because that's what happens in the second movie, that some other group of dummies ends up at that house, and somehow he gets resurrected out of the well, and it just goes from there. Oh, God. Wow. Honestly, like, I liked it. I remember liking it. And I guess I was just, I guess when we're teenagers, we're just idiots. I mean, that's for sure true.
Well, we had a different level of horror movie around us at that time too, and Warwick Davis and Jennifer Aniston, and it was a leprechaun, and it was silly and goofy, and Wayne's World was talking about it, and I mean, I can kind of put myself back there and remember how I was and how I felt and what we had to work with, and kind of know that why I maybe liked it. But as I admit, I was only half paying attention to it. I think if I actually had to sit down and pay attention, take frickin' notes on this movie back then, like I did now, even my teenage self back in 1993 would have been pretty pissed off. Yeah.
I don't know, but I can almost imagine that kids, like little kids, might still find this amusing. Just because the humor is so juvenile and goofy, and that's not a hit on kids. I'm just saying it seems like it's
oriented towards
more it's oriented towards a younger audience that would appreciate maybe the silliness of it more. And kids, there's a little bit of gore, a little bit, and some kids would probably be affected negatively by that, but I know a lot of little kids who are, playing Call of Duty or whatever, so they've definitely seen worse.
Yeah.
I'd let little kids watch it if I was confident that they, could handle that little bit of gore.
I mean, if they could see any of the other kiddie type movies that we've seen, Gremlins or
right,
they could watch this for sure.
And they might find it funny. I, on the other hand, am old and jaded and was just rolling my eyes and looking at my watch like, come on.
Yeah.
Why isn't this over yet?
And this was a surprise for both of us, right? Like, we just did not remember it this way.
But, I'm very interested to hear what our listeners think about it, and if they've seen it now, as adults, and what they think of it now, and if they still appreciate it for reasons beyond nostalgia, because I know that nostalgia is a very powerful force, but beyond that, so let us know. Leave us a comment on our webpage or on Facebook. If you're in the same boat as us, where you appreciated it for what it was at the time, but now it's something different, or if you think that we're just being dicks. But that's the thing, Todd. I don't think we're snobby guys most of the time.
Nostalgia saves a lot of movies for us at the end of the day. We're willing to overlook a lot for that, and this one just it didn't work this time around. Not for me.
I mean, I enjoyed watching it because I knew we'd have a good time talking about it. But beyond that, I certainly would never have any reason to watch it from start to finish again. I mean, if it were on and there was nothing else on and I wasn't really paying any attention anyway, sure, let it play in the background. But that's about it.
Yep, agreed. Well, thank you for listening to another episode. If you enjoyed this one, please share it with a friend. You can find us online. Just search Two Guys and a Chainsaw podcast on Google, and you'll find our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, and our website. You can just leave us one of these comments on any one of those places. We'll get back to you, and we will be getting back to more requests here very soon. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.